everybody, I'm sorry I can't be there. At this time when you're watching it, I'll actually be at work, so I'm pre-recording it. Alright, so my whole project was about communicating. So as we know, it was really hard in the very beginning for me to find like a passion or something that I was very driven to or knew much about. And nothing was it didn't stick in my head as much as communicating and talking about communicating. And I remember whenever Tuan was talking about one of the podcasts that he had listened to, the little snip that he told us about kind of stuck with me the most. And then that's where communicating or communication in general was just my topic that I wanted to pursue. So the podcast that I heard was Speak Up, Empowered, The Simply Great Relationships, Where Should We Begin, and Partner in Action. So during that time, I was listening to those and I was trying to find something that spoke closer to me, because I wanted something, seeing everybody or all of y'all be so passionate about one specific thing. I wanted to make sure that I was actually passionate about communication in general as the topic. So I was trying really hard to find specific podcasts about communicating, regardless of actual personal relationships, family relationships, or just work relationships. I just wanted the whole scope of just communicating in general. So I made a little time lapse, and it's not specifically about the days or the time I did it or when I did it or how I went throughout my week, but it's just time lapse of how the podcast came and trickled through this whole entire semester. So it all started when Tuan talked about where do we begin. I listened to that podcast, to one of the podcasts, and it was just about relationships regarding actual physical and emotional ones between your partner. That one talks about how they're just trying to figure it out, but they're not explicitly talking to each other. They're kind of just taking it on their own, and it just pressures and trickles down until they can't anymore. And then the next one was Empowered, and it talked about family ties in this one. And it was very clear to me when I was listening to it, because I mean, in the very beginning, me and my family weren't as talking or open to talking about just anything in general. It'd just be very bland conversations. So this one talks about how you can be in your family and you can actually feel love from your family, but it's not until you actually talk about actual conversations that are important to everybody's life that it gets you kind of feel everybody's just staring at you and attacking you and judging you, but they're supposed to be your family. The next one was Speak Up. Speak Up talks about just communication through your workplace, and I just listened to that one, and so that one was kind of relevant to what's going on right now, because now that I've been working at Chick-fil-A, but now that the whole coronavirus thing is happening, we always have to constantly just wear face masks, and I guess you can't see my facial expressions under the face mask, so a lot of the times I'll be working and I'll actually be really happy, but then somebody comes up and says what's wrong, are you okay? Only because I guess from here down I look like I'm super upset. So it's just talking, learning how to talk without expressing through your face, just specifically just talking about how you feel and continuing that on, and knowing when the boundary is, because you're in your workplace. The next one I listened to was Partner in Action. This one was also with relationships, as you're a partner and a partner, and it was just talking about how it's good to communicate exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, or to have just a list of just everything that is a deal breaker and is not a deal breaker, and you're just trying to get it open in the air to your partner in hopes that they either want the same thing, and if they don't, then y'all would then work it out there. And then the last one was the Simply Great, And then that was just talking about communicating within yourself, I guess you would say. It's more of, did I feel comfortable talking about this, or am I comfortable talking about this, and if I am, when is the right time to talk about it? Just like understanding like how you should process your own thoughts without feeling like grief from outside sources, family, relationships, workplace, anything like within yourself, just communicating that through. All right, and then so in Where Did We Begin? Again, it just talks about a couple that is just pushing all their flaws and all their disagreements down and down and down until eventually like they were just done and they could not get over that. It was a married couple. I think they were married for around 10 years, and the husband wanted a divorce because he seemed like he could not handle it anymore, how it would just be, I guess she would do something and he wouldn't say anything about it, and she thought it was okay, and so he was just pushing that down, or like his expectations just kept on coming down, and just all the pressure that eventually at the end it was so much pressure that he couldn't even want, or he couldn't and he didn't want to talk to about the problem with his wife, that it just ended the marriage completely. So what I took from it was just like a pile just of clothes, I guess, just piling up to where like it just takes over your room. So that's what I kind of wanted to express, I guess, in my designs. Speaking of my designs, this time I really was so wanting to paint. So I tried painting this first one and it did not go out as planned. So what I thought I'd try to do, and I'm probably wrong about this, but I started doing everything on like Procreate on my iPad to get like the same visual effects of like paint on a canvas. So I know that might not be the best situation to go with, but I thought it helped, and it helped me because as I was doing it, as I was listening to the podcast, I was then painting, or I guess iPad painting, but that's what I did there. And then again, after the painting, I was not pleased with it, so I went back to the Procreate and I started from scratch, but it's the same concept of just like piling, so it gets darker, then lighter, then eventually it's just completely white, because that's how you would say that their whole marriage went. It was just piling, and then he couldn't no more. For Empowered, it was just about talking with your family. So again, and for me, like we just don't talk at all in my family. It's kind of like we watch TV, we ask how your day is, and then it just cuts off right there. So coming over here and completely moving away from them, like different things changed, and things of my own life also were like exemplified by living over here. So like finally, after so many years, the table was clear enough to just like express how I feel, how I think about certain things, how they feel, about what I like or what I'm doing right now, this very moment. And so what I had did was just blue, just painted everything blue, and then I tried to just like create like a sky representation, just because I was thinking that after I like just let go of everything and just kind of threw it on the table, like it was just like a clear sky. So again, I know that it's about my podcast, but the podcast was just trying to talk about how you can let things out, and like just like you'll feel so much better between you and your family, regardless of different ideas, I guess. Then the next one was Simply Great, and that again was talking about relationships regarding like friendships. And so I don't know, but if anybody knows me, I am a horrible horrible texter. I can get a text message and I will be like, oh yeah, and I kind of like respond in my head, and then I never type it out and I'll never send it, and then I see the person the next day and they're like, what the heck, Brianna, why didn't you text me back? And I was like, oh, about that. So it's just like really bad at that as well. And then it's just like, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, I guess. It's just talking and being vulnerable with them, like, hey, I just can't talk right now, or just like being open with yourself and honest with yourself to tell them like, hey, I'm busy, or like, I'm gonna be all about this, and then hey, I'm not. I guess that makes sense. But it's just being there for your friends is the best thing that you could do, and when you're not being there and you're not really communicating, or you're not giving out the same push and drive that your friends are, and you're not, it's just kind of like you're just like getting stared at, and like a bunch of eyes are just looking at you trying to like get something out of you, or like text back at you, just like little things like that. So it's just relationships with your friends is just being, again, open and honest, just like any other relationship, but it's just being vulnerable at the very beginning before you're just kind of like there, I guess. And then this one again was also, I did not like the way it looked, so at first I painted it, and that was not very, well, for me it just didn't look as how I wanted it to. So then again, I just went back onto Procreate and try to like do it more, make it more eyes, I guess you would say. Just I wanted it to be like, oh, like something is looking right back at me, or like something is like forcing me to like respond to them or something. And then I have the last one, which is Speak Up. And then the Speak Up was about in my workplace and just communicating through there. And so what I had did was that at Chick-fil-A, it's like a trickle-down effect. So like if you're not doing one thing, it ends up happening, something wrong happens at the very end. So that's kind of what I tried to paint, was that it just, you're at one position, and like if you constantly like skip it or you don't want to go through it, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, which just creates more problems. And so like eventually, like once one set comes in, like you'll do that, and then you'll like go on through there. But yeah, that's about it. That was my project. I actually really enjoyed that. I don't know, I basically was stuck on a podcast about YouTubers for a really long time, and I wasn't really like involved, I guess, in like certain things that like are meaningful to me. So diving in, I guess, to different podcasts, different platforms, just talking about things that like are not necessarily the topic of conversation, it was cool to me, and I do feel like it helped me out in the long run with just relationship and communication in general. I do have a question, a live question from my good friend Cassie. Let me try to pull it up real quick. Let me see what she says. Okay, so Cassie says, what inspired you to choose the topic? So again, how I said in the beginning, it was just super hard for me to just pick something that I wanted to pursue, to understand. And it was so cool to like watch everybody know exactly what they were passionate about and just go off on that. That was really cool. I told everybody that, but it was like also like a slap in the face for me to be like, well, you should get on board and like read some articles or listen to some TV news or something, just to like get out there. So at the very beginning, my communication with everybody in general was just completely off. So I just thought, hey, get this project done and get my life together. Sounds like a good combo. But yeah, that's what made me choose the topic of just communication within different relationships. But that's about it. Thank you guys. It was fun. Bye.